Hey everybody, in this recording I want to take a closer look at the Roto brush as a way to do some rotoscoping effects like we see here. I've got this video clip of these kids walking, and I've rotoscoped the kids out so that I could give it a color splash treatment with the background in black and white, and then add some animated text in between the background and the kids. So we'll use the Roto brush to do this, which makes it fairly easy. I'll start by making a new project, and then I'm going to import my asset here, which is a stock footage clip that I've got of these kids. And I'll go ahead and drop that in a new comp that matches the settings. And then to use the Roto brush, we have to take our layer and double click it to isolate it into the layer viewer. Okay, so the Roto brush is a paint tool. Those of you that are Photoshop users will recognize its behavior as being the same as the quick selection tool in Photoshop. It makes a selection based on color. So here's the Roto brush tool. Now if you click and hold on it, there are two tools in this group, the Roto brush and the Refine Edge brush. We'll take a look at both, but we got to start with the Roto brush. So we'll grab that, bring the cursor into the layer window, and notice that the cursor shows up as a circle or brush size. In After Effects, we can hold the Command key and click and drag to make the brush size bigger or smaller. So that's your keyboard shortcut for adjusting the brush size, holding the Command key on the Mac or the Control key on the PC to adjust the brush size to make the brush bigger or smaller. You can also go to your window menu and bring up your brushes panel if that's not on your screen, and you can choose brush size there as well. Now the way this tool works, just like the quick selection tool, is you basically paint within the color area you are trying to select, and it will make the selection based on color automatically. So the more contrasted the edge is, the more distinct the color is, the better the results are going to be. Now, notice that it's giving me a warning here about resolution because I probably have my preview resolution set rather low. If I switch back to my composition view, click on my preview resolution here, and set it to full resolution. That should take care of that warning. There we go. When you are doing this rotoscoping, you do want to be at the full resolution. Now, to finish setting this up, I'm going to zoom in a bit, make my brush a little smaller, and I'm going to continue to paint within the areas that I want to select until I've got them all selected with this pink line around the edge. So I need to scoot around the image here, adjusting the brush size as needed. Notice that I'm not painting exactly on the edge. I'm letting After Effects find that edge for me. So basically, you need to continue painting until you've got all the areas that you want selected. Now, it's going to over-select in some areas, in which case you've got to zoom in and then hold down the Option key on the Mac or Alt on the PC, and then subtract the areas where it has over-selected. And you may need to make your brush size smaller to get into some of these areas. And again, holding Option to subtract, and then painting to add areas. And so basically, just have to go around until you get the selection pretty much the way that you want it. All right, so I'm going to pause my recording while I continue to do that until I've got this first frame completely selected. Okay, so I've finished going around the frame and refining, or I should say adjusting my selection by painting or option painting to remove areas from the selection or add areas to the selection. And that looks pretty good. So next thing I want to show you here is you've got some options in the layer window for how you view your selection. Right here, these buttons that you see. See, if we click this one, we can view the selection as a red mask. We can change the color of the mask, of course, or this button here to display it as a selection line. This button here displays it as a black and white alpha channel. So a few different options there for how you're viewing your selection. Now, the next thing I want to touch on here before moving to the next frame, though, is if there are areas that need extra refinement, like where there's hair. That is what the Refine Edge tool is for, which is another paint tool. We want to take that brush and basically areas where you need to separate fine parts from the background, like hair or grass. What you want to do is make the brush a little bigger, and then you want to paint over those areas that need extra refinement to create a Refine Edge matte. And this area, see, it displays it in a kind of black and white, like a photo negative kind of a look. That area of the edge you'll have extra controls for in the Roto brush settings over here. These Refine Edge matte controls will become available and allow you to make adjustments to just that area. So you want to use that Refine Edge brush to identify any parts of the matte that are going to need that extra refinement. Okay, so this is how we set it up. We start with the Roto brush, we use the Refine Edge brush to identify those areas that need the extra refinement. Once we've set up the first frame, then we want to progress to the next frame. And the beauty of the Roto brush is that it will propagate the selection that we've created forward to the next frame. So down here in the bottom of the layer window, we can see this little green tab here indicating the base frame where we've started, and then when we hit page down, it will progress forward to the next frame. Or we can hit the space bar and just let it play. And you can see that as it plays forward, it is propagating the selection forward. Now, it may make mistakes, and in fact, in some areas, it's definitely going to, like down here by their feet. You can see it's creating too much of a selection, so I'm going to back it up a bit, and where it starts to go astray, I'm going to correct it. So using the Roto brush, again, option painting to subtract, so if it starts to over-select, just stop it from analyzing. You can see the frames that it's analyzing right here indicated in green, and then go ahead and hit the space bar or page down to the next frame and keep going. You may need to keep making some adjustments. Oop, now at that time it took way too much, so go ahead and fix it. Sometimes it takes a few strokes, and then we continue on. So the beauty of the Roto brush is that you don't have to necessarily do every single frame. It's going to, propagate the selection that you've created and the Refine Edge area that you've identified. It's going to propagate it forward to each frame. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause my recording here and let it finish processing the layer and see how it does. Now, when it's done analyzing the clip and you're finished making adjustments to the Refine Edge or Roto Edge mattes using the paint tools, this is an important step. Click the freeze button that you see right here within the layer window. And if you don't see it, you might need to expand that window. Make sure you can see that freeze button. Like I said, this is an important step because it's going to lock in what you've done. If you don't click that button, every time you move your time marker, it's going to have to recalculate the Roto brush matte. and that can be time consuming and problematic. So make sure and hit that freeze button and then give it a moment to basically lock in and catch all of the work that you've done. Okay, so once it's done freezing the results in place, you'll see the timeline here indicated in blue. It says that it's frozen. And if you want to make any further adjustments using the paint tools, you have to unfreeze it by undoing that button. Once it's locked in, you can switch back to your composition view and you'll see the extracted results. So if there's no other layers underneath, then of course the background is just black. If you want to see the transparency grid, you can click the transparency grid button right there in the composition view. And at this point we can make edge refinements. If we come over here to the effect controls, we'll see the settings for the edge refinements. So for the overall Roto brush edge, you've got feather, contrast, shift edge, and reduce chatter. And then for the area that you identified with the refine edge matte, you've got additional controls. So feather is the edge softening. So if you want to feather the edge out, soften the edge, you increase that edge feather value. So for example here, if I zoom in a little closer and feather that edge, you'll see that it's softening that edge, but that also rounds the corners. So got to be careful with that. Contrast is the opposite of feather. That will stiffen the edge or harden the edge. Shift edge will expand or contract the edge. You can see in this case I'm getting a little bit of a fringe around the edge, so I might shift the edge one way or the other to see if I can tighten it up a little bit. I think in this case shifting the edge in a bit and then maybe feathering it a bit more might produce better results. Maybe I feather it about 10. Maybe I shift it about -50. That looks all right. Reduce chatter. That will help to stop the edge from flittering or chattering so much when it's playing. So if you load up a preview and, take a look at what you've done, if you notice the edge wobbling a lot, that's called edge chatter. And so increasing the reduce chatter can help with that. I might put it at about 50% in this case. Now for the areas where I have done the refine edge, I will use the settings there. So in this case, I think I'm going to feather that out more, soften that area where the hair is a little bit more, maybe not quite that much. And again, you've got controls there for shift edge, reduce chatter. Okay, so once you've dialed in your edge settings, of course, you're now ready to, give the composition whatever treatment you were aiming for. So in my example here, I wanted to have the kids in color and the background in black and white. So basically, I'm just going to go back to the project panel, grab the footage and drop another copy of it back underneath, and then put a black and white effect on it. So something simple like that. And that's fairly forgiving of the edge quality. Okay. And then the other thing I did in my example is I added a text layer in between the kids and the background. So grabbing my type tool, making a text layer, styling the text as needed, and animating it, and so forth. All right, well, hopefully this recording gives you some ideas for getting started with the Roto brush and how to get better results out of it. It is fairly tedious. It's not as slow and time-consuming as rotoscoping with masks, but it is still a time-consuming process. And, it can take a while to get the quality of results that you want. Hopefully this helps, and I'll see you in the next recording. Thanks for watching.